There was a time when Criss Angel felt impossible to escape. Turn on the television in the mid-2000s, and chances were high that you would see him hanging from a helicopter, walking across water, or escaping from a lockbox underwater. He was not just another magician pulling cards from sleeves. Criss Angel became a cultural moment. His show Mind Freak exploded onto television screens and changed how people saw magic forever. Before him, magic often felt safe, playful, and distant. After him, magic became dangerous, dark, intense, and personal. Viewers were glued to their screens because what he did felt real, risky, and sometimes painful to watch. His black clothes, heavy eyeliner, rock music soundtracks, and fearless attitude made him look more like a rock star than a traditional magician. During this peak, Criss Angel was everywhere. He appeared on talk shows, magazine covers, award ceremonies, and primetime television. Fans debated endlessly whether his tricks were real, staged, or something supernatural. Critics argued, magicians complained, but audiences could not look away. At his height, he was one of the most talked-about entertainers in the world. And then, slowly, something changed. The TV appearances became rare. The headlines stopped. New magicians replaced him in the public spotlight. People began asking the same question again and again. What happened to Criss Angel? Why don't we see him anymore? Many assumed he faded away, lost relevance, or failed to adapt. Others believed scandals or dark secrets ended his career. But the truth is far more human, emotional, and complex. Criss Angel did not disappear because he failed. He stepped back because life forced him to. His story is not about vanishing. It is about survival, sacrifice, and choosing purpose over fame. To understand why Criss Angel seems less visible today, we must go back to where everything began and follow the full journey, from childhood dreams to unimaginable personal challenges that changed everything. Long before the fame, before the illusions, and before the cameras, Criss Angel was simply Christopher Nicholas Sarantakos, a quiet boy growing up in a Greek-American family in East Meadow, New York. His home was loving and supportive, filled with tradition, discipline, and hard work. His father, John Sarantakos, ran a business and worked long hours but always made time for his children. His mother, Demetra, was deeply involved in her sons' lives and encouraged their dreams. Criss often described his childhood as warm and full of love, but his imagination constantly drifted beyond everyday life. At the age of 6, everything changed when his aunt showed him a simple card trick. To most people, it would have been a harmless moment. To Criss, it was life-altering. That single trick opened a door to a world where reality could be bent, where limits could be challenged, and where the impossible could feel reachable. From that moment on, magic was not just a hobby. It became an obsession. He spent hours practicing alone in his room, while other children played outside. He watched magic tapes, studied books, and repeated tricks until his hands hurt. School never fully captured his interest, but magic demanded his full attention. By the time he was a teenager, he was already performing at small events, birthday parties, and local venues. His first paid performance earned him just $10, but to him, it meant everything. It proved that his passion could become a life. While many children dream and then grow out of those dreams, Criss never let go. Every year, his dedication deepened. He treated magic seriously, almost spiritually. Each illusion felt like a ritual, each performance a test of discipline. This intense focus would later become both his greatest strength and his greatest burden. Even as a young boy, Criss believed that the mind controlled reality, that belief could shape outcomes, and that fear existed to be challenged. These ideas would later define his performances, his risks, and the choices that eventually pulled him away from the public spotlight. As Criss Angel's skills grew, so did his ambition. But just as his career began to gain momentum, tragedy struck in a way that would reshape his entire life. His father, John, the man who had supported his dreams without hesitation, was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Doctors gave him only weeks to live. Against all expectations, he survived for several years, fighting with strength and determination. Criss stayed close to him during this time, deeply believing that the mind could influence the body. Watching his father battle illness strengthened his belief in mental power, but also exposed him to deep fear and pain. When his father finally passed away in 1998, Criss was holding his hand. That moment marked a permanent shift inside him. Grief did not slow him down. Instead, it pushed him further. He became more intense, more driven, and more willing to test the limits of his body. His stunts grew darker and more dangerous. Hanging from hooks pierced through his skin, burying himself alive, escaping from underwater traps. These were not just tricks. They were personal challenges. To Criss, every stunt became a way to confront fear, honor his father, and prove that pain could be transformed into strength. Magic stopped being entertainment alone. It became therapy. His work became a place where grief could be released and controlled. This emotional fuel is a key reason why Criss Angel performances felt so raw and real. Audiences were not just watching tricks. They were watching a man fighting his inner demons in public. But this emotional intensity came at a cost. Living at such extremes, both mentally and physically, is not sustainable forever. The pain that once drove his success would later force him to step away from the kind of fame he once chased relentlessly. In 2005, Criss Angel reached a level of fame that most entertainers only dream of. Mind Freak premiered on television and instantly set itself apart from anything else on the air. This was not traditional magic. It was fast, aggressive, emotional, and dangerous. Each episode felt like a challenge to reality itself. Criss Angel combined street magic with massive stunts, placing himself in real physical danger, walking on water, levitating between buildings, hanging from helicopters. These moments shocked viewers and sparked endless debate. Some people believed he used hidden technology. Others believed he was risking his life for real. That uncertainty became part of the magic. His look, his music, and his attitude made him a symbol of a new era. Younger audiences connected with him in a way they never had with magicians before. Over 6 seasons and nearly 100 episodes, Mind Freak became a global success. Criss Angel won awards, broke records, and inspired a new generation of performers. But success at this level is demanding. The pressure to constantly top the previous stunt was intense. Every episode required more risk, more danger, and more preparation. His body suffered injuries. His mind carried constant stress. Critics within the magic community accused him of focusing too much on shock value. Others questioned his methods. But despite the criticism, the show succeeded because audiences believed in him. Yet behind the scenes, the weight of constant performance was building. Fame gave him everything he wanted, but it also took away balance, privacy, and rest. Eventually, Criss Angel made a decision that surprised many. He chose to end Mind Freak, not because it failed, but because he needed to evolve. This decision marked the beginning of his gradual disappearance from mainstream television. When Mind Freak ended in 2010, many assumed Criss Angel had lost popularity. In reality, the opposite was true. He intentionally stepped away from television to focus on live performances, especially in Las Vegas. Live shows gave him control, creativity, and freedom that television could not. He partnered with Cirque du Soleil to create a stage show that combined illusions with acrobatics and storytelling. However, the first version of the show received mixed reactions. Critics were harsh, and audiences were confused. Instead of quitting, Criss Angel took full control of the project and rebuilt it from the ground up. The show was reborn as Mind Freak Live, and this time it succeeded. Night after night, theaters were packed. While television fame faded, his live audience grew stronger. But stage success does not generate the same viral attention as television. People began seeing him less because he was no longer entering their homes through TV screens. He did not vanish. He changed platforms. This choice reduced his mainstream visibility, but it gave him stability and purpose. Yet just as his career found a new rhythm, life delivered another devastating blow that would fully explain why Criss Angel stepped away from public life even further. In 2015, Criss Angel faced the most terrifying challenge of his life. His young son, Johnny Christopher, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, a serious and aggressive form of cancer. In that moment, everything else became meaningless. Fame, money, and applause no longer mattered. Criss Angel became a father fighting for his child's life. He stepped away from performances, appearances, and media obligations to stay by his son's side. Hospital rooms replaced stages. Chemotherapy replaced rehearsals. The magician who once escaped death on television now faced a reality no illusion could control. This period changed him deeply. He spoke openly about the emotional pain, fear, and exhaustion. Watching his child suffer forced him to reevaluate his priorities. This is a true reason many people stopped seeing Criss Angel. He chose privacy over publicity. He chose fatherhood over fame. While the public wondered where he went, he was exactly where he needed to be. This was not a disappearance. It was a sacrifice. Rather than retreat completely, Criss Angel used his platform to raise awareness about childhood cancer. He founded the Help Foundation, dedicated to supporting families and funding research. He organized large charity events and used his shows to tell his son's story. Audiences saw a different side of him, not just a performer, but a father and advocate. His mission expanded beyond entertainment. This shift further changed how often he appeared in mainstream media. He was no longer chasing attention. He was using it responsibly. While other celebrities chase headlines, Criss Angel focused on impact. This quiet dedication is why many people believe he disappeared. In reality, he matured. His priorities changed, AS's visibility decreased. Rumors filled the silence. Some claimed he had fallen off. Others pushed darker narratives involving occult symbols or hidden practices. These rumors were fueled by his gothic style and mysterious branding. But Criss Angel repeatedly clarified that his work was based on practice, engineering, and discipline, not supernatural forces. The darkness was always part of the show, not the man. Unfortunately, rumors often travel faster than truth. His absence from television allowed speculation to grow unchecked. Today, Criss Angel continues performing in Las Vegas, creating new illusions and supporting cancer research. He remains deeply involved in his son's care and advocacy work. While he is less visible on television, he is far from inactive. His life is quieter, more focused, and more grounded. Fame no longer defines his success. Purpose does. Criss Angel did not disappear because he failed. He stepped back because life demanded something greater than applause. He chose love, responsibility, and purpose over constant attention. His story is not about fading away. It is about growing up. The greatest illusion was never his magic tricks. It was a belief that fame lasts forever. Criss Angel proved that true strength lies in knowing when to step out of the spotlight and into what truly matters. Living a life built around danger comes with price. And for Criss Angel, that price slowly began to show in ways the audience never fully saw. While viewers watched him escape underwater traps or hang from hooks pierced through his skin, they rarely saw the recovery afterward. The pain, the injuries, and the exhaustion stayed hidden behind edited footage and dramatic music. Over the years, Criss Angel's body took serious punishment. He suffered muscle damage, nerve pain, infections, and long-term physical stress from repeatedly pushing his limits. Doctors warned him more than once that continuing at this pace could permanently damage his health. But like many performers driven by passion, he kept going, believing that slowing down meant losing everything he had worked for. Mentally, the pressure was just as heavy. Every new performance had to be bigger, more shocking, and more dangerous than the last. Fans expected the impossible every time, and critics waited for him to fail. That constant demand created a cycle where rest felt like weakness. Over time, the excitement that once fueled him began to mix with anxiety and burnout. Criss Angel was no longer just performing magic. He was carrying the expectations of millions. Add to this the emotional weight of his past, including the loss of his father, and it becomes clear that his life was never as glamorous as it appeared on screen. Fame can be isolating, especially when your public image is built around fearlessness. Admitting vulnerability becomes difficult. For Criss Angel, stepping away from television was not just a career decision. It was an act of self-preservation. He needed to protect his body, his mind, and eventually his family. The audience saw less of him not because he lost relevance, but because continuing the same path could have destroyed him completely. This part of his story is rarely discussed, yet it is one of the most important reasons behind his reduced visibility. When someone lives on the edge for too long, survival eventually becomes more important than spectacle. Criss Angel reached that moment and made a choice many entertainers never do. He chose to slow down before it was too late. As the years passed, Criss Angel slowly began to understand something that many celebrities realized too late. Fame is loud, demanding, and unforgiving, but it is also fragile. One moment, the world is cheering your name, and the next, it is already looking for someone new. During his peak television years, Criss Angel lived in a constant race against time. There was always another episode to film, another stunt to design, another risk to take. Every decision was shaped by the question, how do I top this? That mindset brought success, but it also left very little room for peace. When he stepped away from television and focused on live shows, he finally gained a small amount of control over his schedule. Yet even then, the pressure of performing night after night in Las Vegas was intense. Behind the scenes, his personal life was changing. Relationships, family responsibilities, and emotional fatigue all demanded attention. Fame no longer felt like a reward. It felt like a responsibility he could not put down. This shift became even more clear after becoming a father. Parenthood changes priorities in ways nothing else can. Suddenly, success was no longer measured by ticket sales or applause, but by time spent at home, by being present, and by protecting the people who mattered most. When his son became ill, that lesson became painfully real. At that point, disappearing from headlines was not a loss. It was a relief. Criss Angel began choosing silence over interviews, privacy over promotion, and purpose over popularity to the public. It looked like he faded away. In reality, he was reclaiming control of his life. He still loved magic, still performed, still created, but he no longer needed the constant validation of mass attention. This is something audiences often misunderstand. We are used to seeing celebrities as characters, not people. When they step back, we assume failure. But sometimes, stepping back is a sign of growth. Criss Angel had already proven himself. He had nothing left to prove to the world. What he needed was to prove something to himself, that he could be present, grounded, and whole without living under spotlight. That quiet decision, repeated day after day, is one of the biggest reasons you don't see Criss Angel the way you once did. He didn't disappear. He evolved into a version of himself that valued meaning over noise, and that choice changed everything. Another major reason you don't see Criss Angel as often anymore has nothing to do with failure, scandal, or loss of talent. It has to do with how entertainment itself changed. When Mind Freak first aired, television was the main way people discovered stars. Millions tuned in at the same time every week, creating shared cultural moments. Criss Angel's style was perfect for that era. His dark look, dramatic pauses, and shocking stunts felt fresh and unforgettable. But as years passed, the way people consumed content shifted fast. Cable television lost power, attention spans grew shorter, and online platforms began to dominate. YouTube, TikTok, and social media started favoring quick, fast-moving clips rather than long, dramatic build-ups. Magic itself also changed. Viewers became more skeptical, more aware of editing tricks, and more interested in casual, street-style magic rather than theatrical illusions. Criss Angel's performances were built for stage and television, not short-form digital content. Adapting would have meant changing his entire identity, something he was not willing to do just to stay visible. At the same time, new magicians emerged who understood social media better. They spoke directly to the camera, showed raw reactions, and created content that felt personal rather than mysterious. The mystery that once made Criss Angel powerful now worked against him in an age where audiences wanted transparency. This does not mean his magic became worse. It means the environment around him changed. Even producers became cautious. Large-scale illusions are expensive, risky, and difficult to ensure. Networks preferred safer, cheaper content with quicker returns. Slowly, opportunities for shows like Mind Freak disappeared. Criss Angel still had a strong fan base, but television executives were chasing trends, not loyalty. Instead of fighting the system, he chose a different path. He focused on live performances, where his skills mattered more than algorithms. Live audiences still responded to the danger, the emotion, and the intensity of his work. However, live shows do not create viral headlines the way television once did. To the online world, it looked like silence. In reality, he was still working constantly, just outside the spaces people were paying attention to. This is an important lesson about fame in the modern age. Visibility does not always equal relevance. Someone can be incredibly successful without appearing in trending feeds. Criss Angel became a victim of timing, not talent. He rose during television's golden age and stepped back as the internet reshaped everything. Rather than chasing attention in a world that no longer valued long-form spectacle, he stayed true to what he believed magic should be. That choice cost him visibility, but it protected his identity. And in a world where trends change every month, that kind of consistency may matter more than temporary fame. No public figure reaches massive fame without also attracting controversy, and Criss Angel was no exception. As his popularity grew, so did the criticism. Many skeptics accuse him of relying too heavily on camera tricks, paid actors, or edited reactions. Online forums and videos appeared, breaking down his illusions frame by frame, trying to expose how everything was done. For casual viewers, this created doubt. For dedicated fans, it created division. Criss Angel responded to criticism by doubling down on danger, choosing stunts that were difficult to fake and physically impossible to dismiss. But this response came at a cost. The more he tried to prove himself, the more pressure he placed on his body and reputation. At the same time, his dark and intense persona became an easy target for mockery. Comedy shows, internet memes, and parody videos turned his seriousness into a joke for a new generation. In the age of social media, perception spreads faster than truth. A single viral clip can reshape how someone is remembered. Slowly, the conversation around Criss Angel shifted from awe to debate. Was he a genius, or was he overrated? This constant judgment can wear down even